sa karanasan po, tingnan ba natin sa lahat ng dito?
Media educators and learners called to defend press freedom.
This corruption in media won't be reduced to
Good evening. You're watching News Cafe on the Solar News Channel. I'm Mitzi Borromeo. Tonight, we have a very interesting group of guests. He is an actor, director, theater performer, and founder of comedy group Silly People's Improv Theater, or S.P.I.T. We have Gabe Mercado in the house tonight. And with him are his fellow S.P.I.T. members, Aaron Cristobal and Happy Ferrarin. Good evening, guys.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us
on the show tonight. So let's start with S.P.I.T's foundation. You
Okay.
founded S.P.I.T in 2002, Gabe.
Yes,
What
yes,
prompted you to come up with this?
I was already appearing on TV back then. I had a contract with ABS-CBN and I was marketed as a comedian.
Yeah.
And then my background has always been theater. And when I was marketed as a comedian, I immediately thought, Teka, how can I become better at my craft? And there weren't many people in the industry who were mentors at that time. Yes, in the industry there are good comedians, but nobody was in a mentorship
Right.
Mode, except for Redford Dwight, the late Redford Dwight, whom I was quite close to. And he just kept saying, look for workshops abroad.
Yeah.
Look for opportunities to make yourself better, because not many people know that Redford Dwight was huge on craft. And when I researched and I came across improv comedy and realized that I knew it because of Whose Line Is It Anyway and all of that.
Yes, I love that show.
I signed up for a workshop, and that was in 2001. And then 2002, I set up the group. And
Yeah.
the rest is history.
And now you're what, more or less you're about 20? 15 to 20?
Yeah, about 15 to 20, yeah.
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 So Aaron, you joined in 2006, is
Yes.
that right? And Happy
2007.
Right. So I'd like to ask each of you, well, we know Gabe, you are a comedian,
Yeah.
and I'll ask about each of your lives outside of S.P.I.T. Aaron, you are a commercial model and actress also, is that right?
Commercial model.
Sure.
Model.
The reluctant commercial model, but you also work in the corporate world.
Yes, well, sort of. I work with a startup company, an app company, mobile app company that opened an office here in the Philippines. So we're still trying to build the brand for that. I also work in corporate training with Gabe and
Yeah.
the rest of S.P.I.T. I work in Republic Club every Friday. So it's a diverse, I do.
Wow.
I like to tell people that improv is really my passion and everything else just pays the bills.
Well, how did you get into S.P.I.T? Why? What happened? What made you decide to get into improv?
I was in college at the time, and I'd watch them perform right across my school. I went to Ateneo, so they'd be performing in Magnet, Katipunan.
Yeah.
I'd watch them, and then one day they said, oh, we're having workshops, we're having open auditions, if anyone wants to go. I knew Missy Maramara, she was the teacher of my friend. She asked me to join, and I'd go there every Tuesday, and then because I was always present, it was by default.
Wow, so fans can actually join
Pwede
if you're good enough.
My commitment was there.
That's important, commitment in comedy. And Happy, how did you get into well, of course, also you're with a startup group called
Yes.
Bantay.ph. So what else is keeping you busy?
Well, I do that. So I run my NGO.
Yes.
That takes up most of my time. And then sometimes I also take on projects in the advertising industry. So I'm an assistant director also.
Yeah. And
shooting
you come from a
commercials.
family, your siblings are all visual artists, right?
Wow.
All of you are
I
artists,
know
aren't you?
everything.
I research.
You can just look at my
I
eyes.
stalk you.
Yeah, my sister's a fashion designer. My brother's
Your brother's a
photographer.
rapper.
Yeah, and my
Nimbus
other
9.
Yeah,
Ah,
wow.
I listen, I like raps. So yeah, I know
Yeah.
your brother's. So you have also a visual artist brother?
Yeah, the younger one.
Yeah.
Then there's me.
Yes.
Just nothing. Yeah. Just advocating good governance and doing improv.
Someone in good governance, how did someone like that get into comedy? What brought you into S.P.I.T?
I saw S.P.I.T actually also in Magnet Katipunan. My brother was a friend of Aaron and he told me like, Happy, I think you like this. So I watched it and I was like, oh my God, this looks like so much fun. So I approached them and I was like, hi, can I just sit in your rehearsals? Because, I didn't want to assume that they would take someone like me. So I was just like, hi, can I sit in your rehearsals? But you don't really do that in a rehearsal of S.P.I.T.
You have to participate.
Yeah, you have
Yeah.
to participate. You can't just sit in. in.
Yeah.
So, I was shocked that they still kept inviting me, that they still didn't kick me out. But I'm still waiting for my initiation in S.P.I.T.
After
Initiation.
7 years.
After 7 years. I still haven't had it.
Well, this is the fun part about S.P.I.T, that as a viewer, you can also participate. I've been to your shows and
Yeah.
you guys really make me laugh. So, Gabe, what is it about improv that you think that really sets it apart from the other groups here in the Philippines?
Well, when we say that an improvised show is really improvised, really, we don't come in with a set agenda, or we don't huddle backstage and say, oh, ganito mangyayari at tapos bahala na mga linya. No, the very structure and the very storyline is made on the spot. So it's
That's
like
tough.
the extreme sports of performance art, I guess.
Yeah.
Na talagang super adrenaline rush, not just for us, but also the audience, because there's a little bit of voyeurism in it for the audience, because they're actually scared that you're gonna fail.
Yeah,
There's
is-
that aspect na, will these
scary,
guys
yeah.
fall off the tightrope?
Right, right.
And then when they're able to get to the other side, successfully pull off the suggestion, then the rush is
Yeah.
different.
So take us through what it's like in S.P.I.T, Aaron. You're usually the game master. You open a lot of these, the S.P.I.T
Yeah.
games. For those who are not familiar, what is it like in a S.P.I.T performance? How would you describe it?
Well, we have to brief the audience that we will be needing them in order for us to perform, because if the audience is just quiet, there's really nothing that we can get from them.
Yeah.
So we have to warm them up, make sure they're not afraid to give their suggestions. So that's how the beginning of the show usually goes. And then when we perform short form improv, it's usually a set of games. So
Yeah.
there are rules so that the audience understands what's happening, and then
So you
we
have
take
things
suggestions from the audience and then
Right.
build something.
Short form is built on 2 or 3 minute segments or 5 or 10 minute segments, and it's as simple as give us a word, we'll make a song, or give us a long word and
We'll make a scene.
We'll make a scene, but every line of dialogue must begin with succeeding letters spelling out that word.
Yeah.
Parang ganon. That's short form. But we also do long form, which is like the audience gives us one word, and then we proceed to make a 30-minute play just on that word.
Yes, you've done musicals.
Or a musical
even around
na
it.
just on that.
Yeah. That's what I love about your performance. You have live music.
Yeah.
It's such a wonderful production. And for Filipinos, I mean, from your experience, each of you, do you think that the masses really respond to this? How are your audiences responding to this? And who are your demographics usually? Who would like to answer?
We've found that first there's this myth na yung mga matatalino lang ang nakakakuha ng improv. That's just
Kasi kailangan
not
ka
true.
mag-isip.
No.
Di ba? You also have to be
We've
aware
done-
of issues, huh?
Yeah, we've done, okay, the more truthful the audience is to what they're really concerned with, etc., the better it is for us, because we get better suggestions. Like, for example, last year we did a series of shows in Paco Market. And a public market is
Wow.
about as mass as you can get.
Yes.
And their suggestions were really, really, really good. And these were from kids, from
Yes.
a
Yeah.
7, 8-year-old, 9-year-old.
Yeah.
The more honest you are to the things happening in your life, the better the better suggestions you give, and the more it fuels us to give an interesting scene. So
Yeah.
it's not about
Coming up
Being
with
smart.
something
witty.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not about that.
Okay.
Like for example, what really irritates us is when an audience member sinasabi namin puma-punchline sa suggestion pa lang. Like for example, we do a game na there's an oracle,
Yes.
and the whole setup is there's a 3-headed manghuhula, and then we ask questions. In almost every show, we get the question, if you were a cactus, why?
Bakit? Okay.
Exactly.
Bakit?
The audience member's trying to be funny.
Okay. Yeah,
Instead
yeah.
of asking a
Sila na yung comedian.
Oo,
Parang
parang
sila
sila
na
na.
naging-
But when we did it with kids in Paco Market, ito, anong gagawin ko sa kaaway kong, sa kaklase kong chismoso?
Yeah.
Yun.
And even questions like, bakit may mga mahihirap at bakit may mga mayayaman?
Wow,
Those
those are
are
bad
the
questions.
questions.
Yeah, you can really work with
You
that.
can really
huh?
work with that.
Yeah.
So, yun ang mas magaganda.
So do you think that the Philippine brand of comedy, or what Pinoy seem to really respond to, is slapstick comedy? I don't, because we seem to see in a lot of the commercial movies, it's all slapstick, yung mga mainstream, no?
We do a little bit of slapstick in our show, like torturing one of the S.P.I.T members just for laughs.
yeah.
But it's not something that it's not the base of
Yeah.
our humor.
So
We
where
base it
do
on
you
truth.
get your content, Happy? I mean, where do you pull all of this stuff from?
Like what Gabe said, truth. So I think that's really the anchor of improv, because you're forced to create something on the spot. What else will you draw from? But from your experience and from your shared experience with the audience. That's why I think it's so important, if you're honest to yourself as a performer and also as an audience member. So I think improv really is a comedy with no pretensions. You
Right.
you can't do comedy because you're trying to hide something. In fact, you're not hiding something. You're bearing all. You're letting go. And that's, I don't know, maybe it's therapeutic in some way,
Yes,
but
yes.
and I think, and it's that recognition of truth that makes it funny. It's not because somebody was put on the spot. It's not because we're making fun of someone or putting someone down. It's more because you recognize that, oh my gosh, that's how I am in my life also. I have that experience, and you
Right.
laugh about
Your
that.
little
Yeah.
insecurities, your little hinanakits, or not even so little, mga experiences of traumatic breakups,
Yes.
traumatic experiences
Yeah.
in childhood. But you act it out in a way that's not mabigat.
Yeah.
People resonate with that and say, oh my
Right.
God. Humor is about recognizing incongruities in things and recognizing
Yes.
yourself in
Yeah.
things and asking yourself, teka, ganyan rin ba ako?
Right.
And that's what we'd like to show in S.P.I.T shows.
And you said this too before, that amongst yourselves, you all went through such difficult times in your life. Challenges, relationships, we all go through that, right? Breakups. The group has brought people together. Chismis na yan, okay? I will not ask you, Dave, but you have very interesting stories in the group, right? So you work with these, even though you yourselves have gone through, they may have been painful at some point, but you're able to laugh about it.
Actually, Gabe, when he was taking people in S.P.I.T. No, when you're
Okay.
taking people
The
into S.P.I.T, he
mentor,
made
no?
sure that everybody came from different walks of life. Because if you're coming from different walks of life, it makes a more interesting, there's more interesting chemistry
Yeah.
between the people who are
True.
performing together.
True.
So different experiences.
That's right. And speaking of, so you have thespians, you have commercial models, you have commercial models, startups, comedians, you have people from the
Teachers.
Okay, like for
also,
example,
yes,
there's this guy in our group. His real name is Maurice Gerlan. But when he is with S.P.I.T, he uses the name Maliksi
Maliksi
Zaragoza.
pala yun.
Oo.
Okay, yeah.
The biggest reason why I got him was on his resume, because I sort of asked for that. It said that he was a UAAP athlete who won third place in the walkathon.
May ganun
So
pala.
I said, oh my God, may sayad to. To aspire for a career in brisk walking. I
Wow,
said,
may
I've got to
ambition
get
siya.
him. I've got
Oo.
to get him.
Nakakatawa si
I
Maliksi.
almost always reject people who show interest and say, I've always been the class clown. So throw it away.
Because most of them, they want to be the center of attention.
Yes.
You've got to be a team player.
Yeah.
You've got to be really interested in people.
Yeah. Well, give us some tips on what it takes to be in S.P.I.T. When you say team player, I know you have this philosophy called yes and.
Okay.
And Aaron, you in fact printed that on your body, right?
Yes,
To remind
I do
yourself.
have a
Aaron has a
tattoo
tattoo.
of yes and behind
Tell
my
us
neck.
about yes and. What is
Well,
this
yes,
philosophy?
and I learned it from S.P.I.T. It's the basic principle of improv, where you accept everything that's given to you and you add to it. So yes, you accept it and you add to it, and it moves a story forward instead of cutting it short.
Because the Filipino brand of humor, we were talking about that, has lately been built on laglagan. Breaking character, breaking the scene, putting the other person on the spot. And
Yeah.
this is the antithesis of that. Like for example, if I go into a scene and say, I address Happy and say, Nanay, namatay na si Lolo.
Nako anak, kailangan natin i-arrange yung burol niya.
Yeah, that's yes and.
You just take the situation,
Take the
accept
situation
it.
and add on to it. But if it were like laglagan and she makes me laglag, it's Nanay, namatay na si Lolo.
Di kaya ako nanay mo.
That's Filipino. Laglag,
Oo.
pahiya yung actor. But yes, and helps the co-actors in the sense that our mission is to make your co-actor look good and move the story forward. Don't get a laugh at the expense of your scene mate. That's disrespectful and just the cardinal sin of improv.
So this is what you mean by teamwork. You're always just catching the other guy. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not, and not going for the punchline when it's not there. Or, ay, may linya ako. Set up mo naman ako.
Okay. So this
That
is when
makes
the
her
one wants
terrible.
to be in the spotlight. Walang ganyanan.
Yeah.
Parang saluhan tayo lahat, no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oo.
So for each of you, what is something, for you, Happy, something you've really gotten out of S.P.I.T that has helped you also, I don't know, one of the big skills that, or, you know, another improv. Dates. Yeah, you must get a lot of groupies.
No, not really. Not really. You guys are afraid of girls who are in comedy.
Because it's a very smart girl. There's a lot in here to compete
So,
with, huh?
You know, that's my dating life.
Are you single? Are you single,
Yeah,
Happy?
I'm single.
No, but speaking of which, women in comedy, Aaron and Happy, you know, for men I think it's easier, but when women
Yeah.
are in comedy, there's a lot that they have to live up to. One, it's how they look. What do you think, being a comedian yourself?
Yeah, actually, the girls of S.P.I.T, we always talk about this. You know, we don't believe in the whole, like, you have to be pa-ugly, like a
Yeah.
girl who has to make faces
Right.
to be in comedy. Like, we
That's
don't...
very common.
Yeah.
For
It
women.
happens a
And then
lot.
fat jokes
Yeah.
and you know, it's just it's so common.
Bawal talagang
Yeah.
fat jokes to speak.
Talaga game.
Anyways.
Yeah.
So how, is there pressure on you? Like, do you, you know, do you feel that there are some stereotypes that you've had to break, or?
Like we mentioned earlier, it's very different for
Yeah.
improvisers because we base everything on truth. So it's just if we make a character, it's a character based on someone that we probably met or someone that we know.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily having to fit into a certain stereotype of
Yeah.
being a comedian.
Yeah.
And we're not very crass either
Yeah.
in the shows. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's very different.
Well, speaking of crass, we're gonna say something.
Yeah, also kasi worldwide, even in the improv community, there are not too many women.
Yes,
there.
that's right.
And in
Male
fact, if you're attractive and you do improv, biglang you shoot up talaga, like Tina Fey
Amy
and
Poehler,
Amy
yeah,
Poehler.
yeah,
Those
right.
those two have deep improv backgrounds
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well, but they've
Saturday
shut
Night
up.
Live people. That's
Oo.
right. Well, in terms of comedy, your style of comedy also does a lot of social commentary, right? But what are the topics that you do not touch? Are there any topics that are taboo that you should not cross the line?
We
do you
have
feel
crossed the
about
line before.
We have crossed the line.
You're known to,
We've
S.P.I.T is
learned.
known to do that.
Yeah, but we've learned from that. Sometimes, there's an implicit kasi contract within an improv group and the audience na the first suggestion that you hear, you should use. There's that implicit just to show that we don't cherry pick the suggestions na
Yeah.
kasi people might think, pinili nila yung gusto nilang marinig kasi may prepared
Planted
sila.
na,
Oo.
parang planted sa head.
So we try and avoid that. But sometimes, you really get suggestions that we wish we did not take. Like, some people actually make the suggestions of natural tragedies, for example. And there was one incident where somebody suggested a tragedy, and because of our na kailangan tanggapin yan, gagawin namin. And although our scene was tasteful naman, there was somebody in the audience who was actually affected by the tragedy. So we regret
you have to
doing
be really
that.
sensitive to
Oo.
these issues. All right, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll discuss the present social issues. News Cafe will return after these messages.
When were you going to tell me? Look, your rich father will never agree. I am but a daughter of the laundry maid, and we can work this out. You can pretend you're Chinese. Even the Mongolians never crossed the Great Wall. Repeat after me. Yao Kong Lanang We. Yao Kong Lanang We. See ya! I can never learn your accent.
You're watching News Cafe on the Solar News Channel, and we're still joined by Gabe Mercado, Aaron Cristobal, and Happy Ferrarin of S.P.I.T.
Yay.
All right, guys, so now we get to the social issues.
Okay.
You guys tackle a lot of really important issues. And in fact, you have to really be knowledgeable
Yeah,
of this.
you have to be informed.
So do you require that everybody in S.P.I.T. read up and watch the news always?
Basically, yeah. We meet, well, we perform Thursdays, we meet on Tuesdays. And just part of our ritual is really to update each other over dinner on what the current issues are, whether hard-hitting social issues or just what people are talking about.
Or
So-
gossip.
Or gossip.
Yeah,
Or
plain
gossip.
gossip.
But it's so much easier now. Let's say I started 8 years ago. Facebook wasn't that famous yet, or I don't know. But
All the
it's
social
so
media
it's so much easier to get updated on news nowadays.
Yeah.
You just check your Facebook.
Because you don't even watch TV, right, Aaron?
I
You
don't
said
watch
you have no
TV.
time to
I
watch
didn't know
TV.
Justin Bieber broke up with Selena Gomez. I was so distraught. Yeah.
It's been a few years now, Aaron.
and it's
But-
part of the mix, Ren, with somebody like Happy,
Yes.
who's with her NGO. She attends conferences and all of that. We're very aware. Kenneth is from a different political strain
Orientation.
or
Yes,
orientation. He's with the Filipino Freethinkers. So we get a variety of
Fields, Yes.
feeds
Yes.
from different people. So we're updated on that,
Right.
Ren.
Do you have any favorite issues that you've tackled in many of your shows?
Wow.
What are some of the interesting ones that have come up, maybe?
Oh, the pork barrel one was my
Pork
favorite.
barrel.
Pork barrel, yeah.
She was very funny in that one.
Yeah.
The one in when you were. The
What did you
DAF
comment?
stands
Oh,
for
okay.
money.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
Yeah.
You're able to make fun of a lot of these issues that probably
Yeah.
you cannot really do in real
Oh,
life in front of.
it's not so much it's a lot of it is social commentary, not so much on the issue but the way people react to issues, whether their level of being informed or uninformed.
Yeah.
Like for us, it's easier to make fun of an issue by, let's say, portraying a character that most knows more about the Vong Navarro scandal than the Bangsamoro peace deal. That's
Yeah.
funny for us, portraying
Yeah.
a character like that, but not so much the details of the crime
Right.
or the alleged crime or the situation, but a person obsessed with that rather than the issue itself. So mas ganun yung mga filters namin.
Right. So if we walk through some of the issues that are hitting us today, how would maybe S.P.I.T. do a spin on it? Let's say the upcoming 2016 elections. No? Possible candidates, they say Binay
Right.
or Rojas, Bong Revilla. What do you
Right,
think?
right.
Off the top of your, I don't know, how would S.P.I.T. work with this?
We've done this in past election seasons, but we have a regular game format that we play called Beauty Contest. And basically, it's the audience gives a category for what kind of beauty contest it is. And then the audience members ask questions kasi Q&A portion. We've done a version of it before called the Meeting de Avance, where instead of beauty contestants, there are political candidates and they answer the questions. We try though to avoid it being personality-based because we're not impersonators.
Yeah.
Where the ano of the comedy is how well you impersonate.
Yes.
But more of we try and identify a particular issue. Like we did once during the political season last year, Miss Political Dynasty. So yon, medyo alam mo na that it's more in-depth rather than pangtatama ng personality.
Yes.
More issue-based.
And it really gets the discussion going. No?
Yes,
This is a good- and
oo.
it's interesting some of the answers, the suggestions you get from the audience. What have
Right.
been some of the interesting, are there some that really have struck you? Some interesting ones that have come
I
up?
remember that
Recent-
Political
yeah.
Dynasty and then
Recently, there was somebody who asked, what is the best way to run a government? And actually, it was in a beauty contest also. And I was surprised by the answer of one of my co-contestants. She's like, actually running a government is like running a house. And
Very deep.
they were just making it up on the spot. And we're like, yeah, actually, and because she was joking about how having a clean house is indicative of a good family, and the same way that having clean streets in the Philippines is
true.
indicative of a good government. So
Yeah.
so she was explaining this whole relationship between it's really a house and it's a like almost a dysfunctional family in the
There are roles to
Yeah,
play also.
exactly.
Yeah, I can see that. You have to be really witty, here. You need to be really smart. I mean, look at you have
I think informed rather
more
than
informed.
sm-
Right.
rather
Street
than
smart. I mean,
Yeah.
and very quick. Because how does this work? When you're when you have your practices, so you tackle certain issues and you maybe come up with possible scenarios?
No.
How does it?
Bawal
How does
yun.
one train for improv? Yun nga, especially for big issues like this coming up. O,
Yeah.
ito sabihin mo, hindi pwede.
No.
When we rehearse, we pretend that it's an actual show. So there are S.P.I.T members who act as audience members,
Yeah.
and then we still perform it the way we would at our regular show. So everything is still being suggested.
Right.
It's not something planned.
But if
Right.
that exact same suggestion comes up in the next show, it's very poor form to do what you did in rehearsals.
yes.
Okay.
Very poor form.
We'll
na
all
parang,
judge her if she
We're all gonna
Yeah.
judge you if you
Secretly,
did
you
what
know,
you did.
everyone. Yeah.
Parang
Yeah.
there's that internal watchdog sa amin na talagang when you say improv, we mean improv talaga.
Yeah. Well, back to the issues.
Yeah.
If we were going to take, let's say, of course, the Yolanda super typhoon, no? All the issues on rehabilitation
Right.
and relief coming up.
Right.
Has that come up in some of your shows, or how would you? No,
not.
I
you
think people
that's
are
too
more sensitive.
Yeah.
People
So
are,
this is
are,
not.
are,
yeah.
are-
So this is not something that you also throw in during practice.
No.
Although
S.P.I.T does not really
we
want.
responded to it in a different way.
Yeah,
So we, as improvisers and as theater practitioners, we responded to the whole Yolanda issue in a different way.
Yeah.
We wanted to use it more, like with our experience, we wanted to go there and really help it in community building.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Gabe can.
It brings up this perfect segue
Yeah.
to what is the heroic improvisation. Tell us about that.
We've partnered with Dr. Mary Tiskevich. She is she's a career disaster research professional. She has worked with the U.S. Congress, with the Federal Emergency Management Agency. She's based in New York City, Washington D.C. And she's coming to the Philippines in February to pilot together with us a program called Heroic Improvisation. Now, Heroic Improvisation is a 4-art training program that shares some of the learnings of improvisational theater, thinking on your feet, connecting, moving into action, all of that,
Right.
and how it relates to being prepared for unimaginable environmental disasters. So we're piloting that program. We're going all over the country in a few months. She's here to pilot it, and then we're going to be doing it for the rest of the year at the very least. And we're happy to partner with her. We're happy to partner with JCI Makati Princess or Duha chapter. They're helping us do the logistics for it, so we
Yes.
can come in and teach the
So you're
program.
working with people on the ground. in
Yes.
these different- How many communities have you identified?
JCI has direct contacts with Tacloban, and we're currently in talks with other areas right now
Yeah.
because what our promise is to them is we can get to the nearest port, but you've got to handle the on-ground logistics
okay.
when we're there. But certainly, it's a program that helps people prepare for the next one.
Yeah. How does this tie in with the psychosocial efforts? Is this some
It
some of
doesn't.
them? Okay, because I was curious. So this is totally different.
It doesn't, because there
Yeah.
are people, for example, like PETA,
Yes.
like CCP. They're using theater arts as a way to help people heal.
Right.
We see ourselves as coming in after that. We're not interested in healing or hearing you cry. There are other people who are better at that than
That you
us.
recognize, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're here to share what improvising can teach you about getting ready for the next one. Kasi nga,
For example, how would that work?
kasi people in response to a disaster can get catatonic or just know what to
Yes,
do.
you
Like one of our first exercises when we start the program is to simulate a disaster. And when we've run it before, people don't know what to do talaga.
Yeah.
So the program helps you get to the point where you can act quickly. And yun nga, we're very happy that we developed it with Dr. Mary Tiskevich because she's had years of experience with FEMA mismo.
Right. Oh my gosh, what they've been through, yeah.
Yun ang
I
ano.
wish you could do this with some of our government members. Pwede ba yan? I think they could really use this.
Ano
Maybe you should
yan
take
eh.
it there.
That's more policy oriented.
Yeah.
These are this program is intended for citizen groups.
Okay.
Your classmates, your family, your barangay.
So I could join? You don't have to be a S.P.I.T member
No,
or
yeah,
a theater
Anyone
actor.
can
Yeah.
How does one join this?
Well, first, you can look for details on facebook.com that S.P.I.T Manila. We're using that right now as announcements for that. We have train-the-trainer programs for that. And as long as you know some language like Ilonggo, Waray, Cebuano, and you're interested in teaching this program, then that's good. We'd welcome you.
Yeah, it's a very busy times for S.P.I.T.
Yeah.
So apart from traveling around the Philippines, you have your improv festivals also.
Yeah.
that you're-
We're
Aaron,
actually,
tell us about
we've
it.
performed in Beijing, Hong Kong, and LA. And in March, we're going to be going to the New York Improv Festival and the Chicago Improv Festival. So
Yeah.
it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
And every year you usually hold a Manila Improv Festival.
Yeah.
We hold a Manila Improv Festival every year, but this year we are scaling it down completely. Parang in respect na rin for everything that's been happening, and we're sort of concentrating on that heroic improvisation
Yeah,
program.
that's a big task, and good on you
Oo.
for doing that. Yeah. Well, apart from all of the work you're doing, I'd like to ask how the skills that you get in improv actually apply to the real world in your own lives.
Happy?
Happy.
Happy?
Because I'm the only one in
You've
the
been
real
quoted
world.
as saying, yeah, it can train you to be a good leader and to work whatever field you're in.
Okay, well, I think when I was with my startup NGO, it was really hard. In the beginning, you don't have a set structure. So it was
Yeah.
almost like I was improvising. Really, you're on your own. You don't have really a structure. So it's building relationships, trying to get your team to work together also. Especially, I mean, our NGO deals with good governance and anti-corruption. So it's such a heavy issue also, and it's so hard to navigate, especially we deal with government agencies and government
Yes.
offices. And so, you really have to keep that yes end in mind. Like, if they say no to you, like, no, we're not going to cooperate with you, like, I'm going to find another way to,
What do you have to
get
work
you
with?
cooperate.
Yeah.
So, it helps me navigate through it and really helps me, like, okay, if this person's going to say no, how am I going to go around this? And how do I use improv also to help me build relationships and help them get to work with me? Like, just say yes to me.
I think also
Interesting.
Improv really pushes a style of leadership that rejects the notion of a creative genius. By nature, hindi pwedeng genius ako, sundin niyo ako. But improv believes that if you build everything from small, average ideas that you keep building and yes-ending each other, you create a work of genius.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot in redefining what leadership is, whether in government or in business. A more collaborative, a more listening, a more compassionate culture can be created.
This is exactly what our government needs. Please train the Philippine government. No, a lot can be learned from this. It's true. I mean, and you do workshops for
we
corporations
do.
also,
We do
right?
corporate workshops.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
you've done all kinds of, what else? You've done weddings, Hindu weddings
Oh gosh,
even.
we've done weddings.
So all of this applies to all kinds of events in life. Debuts,
Debuts,
Right.
despedidas,
death anniversary,
death anniversaries.
commemoration.
Yes.
Yeah. So where has S.P.I.T not been? Huh?
Wow.
We've
We
been
don't
everywhere.
know.
Wow.
We've done almost everything, I
In
think.
a meeting, the advance.
Yeah, we've not really done anything political.
Maybe the 2016 elections. I'm sure you guys are going to
We've
plan
got to
some.
believe. We've got to believe in that because there have been invitations for things that we've got to believe in it.
Yeah.
And with a group of highly opinionated people.
Do you think that we have enough comedians that tackle issues like this? Because like earlier you were talking about what makes S.P.I.T different from others. Improv is so different. How do you see Philippine comedy today? And how you might improve
that's tough.
it. Let's look at the networks, for example, the main networks. We see variety shows and slapstick comedy, right? That seems to be the mass Philippine type of comedy. But you're
The last one in mass media that tried was yung Susunod na Kabanata series. And that was years ago. I was part of the last one on ABS-CBN, and we closed down in 2006, I think, or 2005.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I don't think there's really been a political satire.
So you think we
thing
don't
that
do
has
enough
succeeded.
of that?
Certainly not. I don't think we do. And the ratings, the reason why Ito na ang Susunod na Kabanata did not continue was because the ratings weren't good enough for the network.
Yeah, that's right.
And-
So you think that improv will reach the masses? How do you feel? Is this something that the greater population of Pinoys can respond to? Or
We're
can-
trying. We're
Yeah.
trying to reach out to everybody. In fact, we performed in Paco Market. We've performed
Yes. And they seem to respond
They
well.
respond very well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's not okay. We're not excluding anybody, but it's not something that keeps us up at night. Now, how will you reach the masses? How will you
Yeah.
reach everyone? It's not really a big dream
Yeah.
for us. We're happy with what we're doing. We wish more people would be interested in it, but we're not agonizing na gusto namin sumikat or anything like that.
Yeah. So 10 years from now, where do we think S.P.I.T will be? What are your plans? I mean, I know you guys, obviously you guys need to train. How is the training going for the people who will follow in your footsteps?
Wow.
How is that going?
Well,
Talk about Switch.
yes, we do have a group that we've taken under our wing. They've been performing a lot in BGC. They still call us for advice and they ask us to watch, and we're trying our best to help them so that the improv community in the Philippines grows larger, because
Yeah.
actually I went to the States early this year and I didn't know how big improv was until I visited Chicago, where apparently one company will have 60 groups under them, and then there are 6 companies in that city alone. So it's a very big community, but here it's really just us and the group that we are training.
Yeah. And then there's a group in Bacolod. There's a startup group in Dumaguete. And that's about it.
Yeah. So you are the pioneers.
We're the ones who ran with it the
Yeah.
longest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is amazing. You ran with it and you're sticking to it.
I'm
Yeah.
sticking
There's
to
so
it.
many
For
people
sure.
following suit.
Well, not so many.
Well, I seem to think when I watch you, your fan
A lot
base
of
just keeps
people
growing.
watch.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that is a big challenge to us because improv certainly has a longer history here than it does, let's say, in Beijing. And in Beijing, there are good friends. And in Shanghai, they have so many more groups sprouting up.
Yeah.
And for us, that was parang, wait a minute, if we're really good, then why aren't we inspiring people to do more? Baka
Yeah.
it's a selfish kind of good.
Yeah. Well, you are the biggest improv group in Southeast Asia, right? I think there's no one
Biggest.
else really.
Well, maybe longest running.
Longest, okay.
running.
Certainly longest
Longest
running,
running.
Yeah.
certainly the most successful.
Do you think there's a good future in improv, in this kind of comedy? Would you encourage others? I mean, how's it going now in the Philippines?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you need to have another job, because all of you have
Oh,
other
of course, you
yeah,
need to have another
I think
job.
that just speaks for theater and arts in the Philippines in general.
In general.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oo. It's not exclusive to us. Nakawawa naman naman. No. Theater artists have that same problem.
Passionate, yes,
Oo,
true.
oo.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask Aaron, you did a movie last year, The Jingle, still coming out, right?
Jingle Boy.
Sorry,
it's
Jingle-
actually
I
not
changed.
done filming yet, so
I was
I
going to ask,
don't
how
really
is
have
it
anything
different?
to say.
It's a comedy, isn't it?
It is a
Is
comedy.
it different? You also, you're an actor.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
Acting and doing comedy on screen and doing improv, is it the same thing?
oh, it's very different. It's very different because when you do a movie, you still have a script to follow.
True. Yeah.
Improv has nothing, and you don't know what's coming. So it's very different. But I do use some of the skills that I got from improv when I act on screen, because sometimes someone makes a mistake with a line. You just have to ride with it. It's something that you learn.
TV
Yeah.
and movies is still the medium of the director and the writer.
Yeah.
Improv is really the medium of the actor. Kasi the director, some people mistake improv as, oh, ito yung role mo, improv mo na lang yung sasabihin mo ah. Tamad lang yung writer at director.
Ad-lib ka na lang.
Yeah.
Oo,
Ad-lib.
that's
Ad-lib,
not
right.
improv, that's
Yeah.
katamaran. But improv is really, you don't know your character, this is the suggestion, go with it, build a character and
Yeah.
the interactions on the spot.
Yeah. Well, lots of lessons in life we're learning from these guys, but we have to take another short break. News Cafe will return with S.P.I.T giving us an improv performance. Stay tuned. Kaya ba?
It's not working. It's not that I don't love you anymore. It's just that maybe I don't know how to love anyone anymore. I'll come back. I'll come back and get my things. I mean, just cut the drama. It's over. It's done. Let each other go.
God, Josh, you asked for a second chance. You did.
And yes, I did, and it didn't work out. So come on, let's cut our losses. Come on, let's just put an end to this right now. Look, it's hard enough. It is hard enough to do this. I am being the kind one here and being level-headed.
Ma'am, size 7?
You're still watching News Cafe on the Solar News Channel, and we are joined by Gabe Mercado, Aaron Cristobal, and Happy Ferraran of S.P.I.T. And finally, the moment we've all been waiting for. We're going to get a little taste of our own S.P.I.T.
We're
here.
going to do an improvised scene
Okay, Gabe,
right
what are we
now.
gonna do?
The first thing I'm going to ask you is, on a piece of paper right there, I want you to write the longest, most complicated word you know that is not supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. So a long, complicated, and don't show it to us. Well, I explain what's going to happen.
gosh.
So what's going to happen is that we're going to go through a scene, and each line of dialogue that we're going to do is going to spell out the word that you said. So per letter. So if it's like dog, the first line starts with D,
Okay.
next starts with O, next starts with G, etc. But we'll only know that word after you've written it. And you're going to call out each letter to us, just to show that we can't anticipate and we can't pre-plan this. And the final suggestion that we need is, could you give us a suggestion of something that Lola would really make pagalit her apo about? Make pagalit?
Make pagalit.
Throwing her dentures in the toilet?
Okay, thank you. So it's throwing dentures in the toilet. So this is an improvised scene. We call it the alphabet soap opera. You can call out the letters anytime.
Do I have to say the word? I just spell it. I say the word
okay, say the
first.
word.
Well, in light of all that's been happening, rehabilitation.
Rehabilitation.
After Yolanda, right?
Okay.
All right.
So letter R.
Really? Really? Tinapon mo yung pustiso ni Lola sa toilet?
E.
Kasi marami na siyang tinga doon eh. So, tinapon ko na lang kasi madumi na siya.
H.
How do you expect Lola to eat right now? Eh, wala na nga siyang pustiso.
A. B.
Bea, bakit mo ginawa yan sa Lola mo?
I.
I don't think that's the good behavior of apo.
Lola, baka you can just mash the food
Ay.
and sip it.
I'm too weak to even hold the spoon. Take some of that mashed potato
A.
and put it on my plate.
Here, is she allowed to eat mashed potato?
That? Mashed potato? In particular? Siguro pwede.
Ay. Okay, I'll be the one to feed you na lang, Lola.
O.
Of course, because I cannot even hold the spoon.
N.
Ngayon, alam mo na kung gaano mo inapi ang sarili mong Lola.
Galing.
That's what improv is about. Na talagang we can't plan it. We don't know the...
So this is what you mean by you just take it. You can't say, ang corny naman ang sinabi mo.
No.
You have to take what the other one says.
Exactly.
So, okay.
You can't. And
Acceptance is key.
acceptance na I took that role of parang I had to show indications already that I'm sort of an authority figure and that she is a younger one, and she had to accept that.
Yeah.
Hindi
You have
na
to
niya
be
ako
very
pinansan.
intuitive, huh?
And since nobody was the Lola,
Yeah, exactly.
Look it.
This is brilliant.
It worked. So I love your chemistry, all of you, and there's 15 of you.
Yeah.
Your chemistry just really shines through on stage. And when the music, especially when you have the music and
Oh,
it
yeah.
sets the scene.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. What's it called? Parang telenovela siya.
Yeah.
Tama.
Famous moment.
Suddenly, naglalaba si Ariel. Biglang, the
Correct.
music changes.
Correct.
So what are the most difficult parts of improv for you, Happy? I mean, it's challenging, huh? What for you has been a big...
One thing I think is, the acting is fine because I always trust that my co-actors will help me. One is drawing out good suggestions from the audience. So warming up the audience and getting them to give you good stuff. That for me is a challenge sometimes.
Because a lot of times they would suggest, the most common suggestion that we have is sex or
Yeah.
or
graduation.
or circumcision. Parang
They want... Sometimes it's shock value na when they say...
Yeah. Or if
Oh.
it's just or toilet humor,
Toilet
like
humor
jokes.
na.
Yeah.
We can run with that if you really want us to, but parang it's not a challenge. And
Yeah.
parang yun.
Yeah.
So that's difficult.
So what are some of the best shows you've had? Some of the ones that really made you happy?
The
or-
bingo tournament was something.
Oh, you
What
go
happened
into
to the
this
I
that
mean,
one.
this was 2 years ago.
I wasn't in that one. I was
Kaya pala mo, that was the best. Wala si Gabe. Just kidding.
Fun because
Okay.
the questions that the oracle usually gets are what came first, the chicken or the egg, or something very common like what does love mean to you? But the questions of the people at a bingo tournament, no, were very relatable. Like the ones in Paco Market, but I can't remember.
So the
Yeah.
audience is key.
The audience is key.
is
We love student audiences. Some of the memorable
yes.
ones were in Cebu, arranged by our friend Henry Go.
Plug it.
We did 3 shows in a row in the Cebu CICC, Cebu International Convention Center, and each audience had about 3,000 students in it. And that is just, ang sarap.
Yeah.
Building.
So you feed off their energy.
Oh,
huh?
yeah.
And students are very, well, they're still studying, so their brains are very active. And it's so easy to get a reaction because they're still in a stage where, kilig, or,
Yeah.
you know, everything is heightened when you're at that age. So
And you relive those moments.
exactly,
Right?
and they can relate with it. So
Yeah.
it was a very good show.
And
for
some
us.
of their questions are straight out from their from their textbooks. Minsan. And so it's minsan
Yeah.
complicated talaga. They'll ask a chemistry question,
Yeah.
an economics question, and then it's really fun.
I remember watching a show of yours where Ariel, one of your co-members, was,
Yeah.
and you're talking about botany. And
Okay.
so all these lessons from botany, you have to remember some of your
Oo.
old school lessons, the plant cell.
Yeah.
So
Mga ganon.
I saw also one of your skits on Earth Day. You did something with the Cultural Center of the Philippines.
Yes.
So every year you do
Yeah.
themes, no, with the CCP?
Not every year, but often enough with CCP. And for example, that one, it's clear that it's an Earth Day thing. We really go out of our way to do
Research.
research, and we really talk to somebody.
An expert in the field.
At that time, Tita Odette Alcantara was still
Yes.
alive. So we had an evening with her to tell us, teka, what are the big hot button issues here? So,
Yeah.
hindi lang bara-bara. You can't come in with ignorance. You've got to be informed.
Have you ever felt some censorship where you went into a place and maybe you were asked not to tackle certain issues or a country maybe?
Boo.
China.
Oh. Yeah,
Yes.
let's talk about Beijing.
We did an improv festival in Beijing, and there were CCTV cameras
In the
that were
theater.
directly linked to the police station. So if there was anything
Oh my
bad
gosh.
about government,
And, and we had to sign a waiver not to
Yes.
talk about the Chinese government, communism, or even anything about Chinese history.
Wow.
which was very difficult for Kenneth, one of our members.
Kenneth King, of
You
course.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he loves to.
He loves
Yeah, to
issues.
stir the pot.
Right. Wow. So if you had said something right away, you'd have the police come and.
Theoretically, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get arrested.
But in the Philippines, you feel the freedom of speech here. I mean, it's not-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ano naman the only times when we've been requested not to say anything about someone, it wasn't really political censorship as much as courtesy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we understand courtesy.
Yeah, of course. Respect.
Absolutely, oo.
Now, some final tips from each of you. Gabe first. For those who may want to go into improv or someone who just wants to get into comedy, what would you say?
Yeah, if you want to do improv, I'll be teaching a course over summer. I've opened a studio in Pasig with my friend Leo Castillo. And the studio is called The Matchbox. And it's a workshop space where a lot of us teach different courses. Leo will teach his photo works workshop, etc. And different teachers. I'll be teaching improv from out of there this summer. If you want to attend some of my improv workshops, then you can look for me, facebook.com/Gabe Mercado or facebook.com/SpitManila.
Something to do this summer. All ages are welcome? Is there
I'm
like-
going to put the details.
Okay.
I haven't sorted that
Okay.
out. But I don't
You're
like
busy.
kids except
Yeah.
one. Okay.
You're
Sorry.
tough. Aaron?
Tips for
on-
people. Okay,
Yes, for improv.
I think for people who want to try improv,
Always
listening
be
is
good.
always be good. Just always pray at night. No. Listening is very important, and it's not just listening to whoever's giving the workshop. It's when you're doing a scene, you have to listen to whoever it is that you're in the scene with. Because if you come in with a mindset na I want the scene to go like this, and you're not really listening, the story's not going to move forward. You're going to push for your own story. And improv isn't like that. So you really have to listen to each other and react to one another.
Yeah.
And listen also to what's not being said.
Yes.
It's like
As much as what's being said.
relationships.
Happy is into relationships. Well, there's a lot. This is true. Lessons in life. This can
Yeah.
all be applied to our lives. Happy?
Oh, for me, I think it's just to do it. You know, a lot of people, they feel like, oh, I still want to do this. I still want to do this in life. And, you know, if you want to do it, then just do it. You'll learn along the way. So some people, they're hesitant to join improv because they're like, oh, I don't have a background in comedy. I don't have a background in theater. But you don't need it. You just
Yeah.
do it and you learn along the way. And if you last, then it was meant for you. If you don't, then there are other fields out there.
I've learned so much from you guys.
Ako, everyone can do improv. That's the
Yeah.
last. Everyone can
Yeah.
do improv. Not everyone will want to pay to see you do improv, but the skill itself, everyone.
So that's
can
good
do
to know.
improv.
Everyone has hope. Everyone watching, you can all do this.
Yeah.
Right? So where can we catch Spit, Gabe?
From
Thursday, right?
now until about March 15, every Thursday we're at Commune. That's in Liberty Plaza, corner of HV de la Costa and Valero. We're there Thursday nights, 9 p.m.
Right.
And you can check our Facebook site. There's a reservation form because it gets very full every week.
Yeah, it's a small space,
Yeah.
right? And of course, it's Spit.
Yeah.
Well, you guys should write a book. I've learned so much today. Life's lessons, really, from Spit. And please think about training our politicians. A lot of us here.
If
Thanks.
they're open to it.
Yeah, we'll do it. We have an open government policy now.
Governance, bantay.ph. That's right. Also watch for your website, right?
Yeah.
Bantay.ph. Well, thanks so much, guys, for
Thank you,
being here. I'm
Mitzi.
sorry, but that's all the time we have for tonight. I'd like to thank my guests, Gabe Mercado, Aaron Cristobal, and Happy Ferrarin of Spit, or the Silly People's Improv Theater, for being with us today. So join us again next Thursday for another round of discussion here on News Cafe. I'm Mitzi Borromeo. Good night.